Are you ready to learn about prescriptive easements? Because I am. Hello everybody, it's Zach here from realestatelicensewizard.com. Today we're talking about prescriptive easements, how they are created, whether they're beneficial or harmful, and more. So what is a prescriptive easement? Well, a prescriptive easement, sometimes known as an easement by prescription, is a legal arrangement that allows someone to access someone else's property for particular reasons. Easements by prescription arise when a person repeatedly and openly uses a portion of another person's property without the landowner's permission. That last part's really important. Without the landowner's permission. Now, easements by prescription exist through the legal principle of adverse possession, which, if that's unfamiliar to you, we do have a video on that. I'll leave above and down below for you to check out. So, generally speaking, an easement is a right held by one person to use the land of another for a specific purpose, such as driving through someone else's property. A prescriptive easement is a more specific type of easement. As described before, easements by prescription arise when a person repeatedly and openly use a portion of another person's property without the landowner's permission. So what are the requirements? How do these things work? Well, for a prescriptive easement to be granted, numerous requirements must be met. The use of the easement must be in direct conflict with the rights of the original owner of the property, and it must be done without the legal owner's approval. Possession is not adverse if the property owner has the authorization to use the land. And that makes sense, right? This legal status wouldn't exist if there was no issue. If your neighbor had no problem with this and there was no direct conflict, there would be no point of this. There would be no point to essentially create something like this. So I'm going to put these on the screen, but generally speaking, all occupations of the property must be: one, hostile, which means the person seeking adverse possession is doing so without the permission of the owner, which I just talked about. Two, actual, the person seeking adverse possession must have physical possession, meaning again, they're going through it, they can walk through it, or they're using it, whatever it might be. Three, open and notorious. The person seeking adverse possession must occupy the property in a manner that is open and obvious. So again, it can't be misconstrued. It can't be, to the point where it's not. It should be blatant. I guess that would be an easier way to explain it. It should be blatant and obvious. Exclusive would be the next one. The property must be occupied exclusively by the person seeking adverse possession. And again, that just means it's that individual party. It's not like, 10 or 20 different parties. And then lastly, continuous. So all elements must be met at all times through the statutory period. And obviously that period is defined state by state. All of these conditions must be met for a prescriptive easement to be granted through adverse possession. Now, it's worth mentioning that the time limit for acquiring an easement by adverse possession does not begin to run until the person requesting the easement actually trespasses on the property. Because there is no trespasser, a negative easement cannot be gained through prescription. So let's do an example. Let's imagine you purchase a property with a side entrance, meaning you must travel through a portion of property owned by your neighbor. A neighbor has never permitted that piece of property access. But if you continue to use the side entry, as let's say the previous owner did, a claim for adverse possession can occur, and a prescriptive easement could exist. Prescriptive easements often exist in rural areas when landowners are unaware that their property is being used. The offending neighbor becomes the dominant estate when an easement is recognized. Unless the original owner of the property, known as the serving estate, sues the dominant estate owner, the dominant estate owner is the only one who can cancel the easement. Even so, the claimant has a chance of losing the litigation. So are prescriptive easements good or bad? Well, I guess it depends on how you define good or bad. The use of a prescriptive easement is usually justified. They lessen the likelihood of neighborly conflict. Like we mentioned before, let's say you have a long driveway that goes across your neighbor's property to get to your house. You can still use the property under a prescriptive easement. If you own land or purchase a home with a prescriptive easement, it may not be something that you want. The easement remains in place even if the land is sold. It can lessen the property value, which can be beneficial when purchasing the property, but detrimental when selling it. So how do you avoid prescriptive easements? Well, it's easier to avoid a prescriptive easement than to remove one that already is established. A property owner of a potential house buyer can prevent them in two ways. The most straightforward method is to prevent the trespassing or the trespasser from entering your property in the first place. This necessitates you noticing and disputing the constant use. This is the most aggressive method, which may sour your relationship with your neighbors. Giving the trespasser permission to use the property is another option to avoid a prescriptive easements. This avoids the adverse and hostile requirements that would create the situation, thus eliminating any concerns about establishing a prescriptive easement. So what do you need to know for the real estate exam? Well, for the real estate exam, you need to know a legal arrangement that allows someone else to access your property for particular reasons. It's called a prescriptive easement. An easement holder may have this right because they have to use their neighbor's land to access their own. This type of legal arrangement varies by state law or local laws and can be for a certain period of continuous use. If you're unsure how to handle a prescriptive easement, consult with an attorney to further understand it from a legal perspective. Keep this all in mind and you will nail your exam. For more on easements, click the video here and click here to subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.